Gonzaga Nation with another episode of Coaches Show. Assistant Coach Brian Michaelson joining us again today, recapping a little bit of the season as well as a look ahead to what is now becoming such busy off seasons at the college level. So first off, Brian, thanks for joining.
No, thanks for having me. It's good to see you.
Yeah, another heck of a season. I know for everybody but the national championship winner, which is Yukon for 2 years in a row, it's a disappointing end. But you guys had a really good season. Ninth straight Sweet 16, 27-8. The games that you lost were against some really good opponents. Lost to Purdue in the title game twice, lost to Yukon. Give us a summary of the season from a coach's perspective.
Yeah, I think like you talked about, the making another Sweet 16, 9 in a row. I mean, it's getting into historic territory. Very, very successful there. The way that the team really came together over the last, whatever we want to call it, 2 months or so, I thought we played really, really good basketball. Really just losing those 2 games to St. Mary's and Purdue, which again, St. Mary's, finished in the top 15 again. I thought we were playing really well. I liked how we banded together. I thought we played great that first week in the NCAA tournament. Another 25-win season. I mean, it's hard to get to 20 games. 25 is really, really difficult to get up there to 27 again. I thought was a really good achievement. So obviously early in the year, I think the consistency wasn't what we're used to at Gonzaga, not where we wanted to be. But when you sit back now that the season's over, look at the whole 35 games, I think it was really successful. And, we ran into a really good Purdue team with beyond a really good player in Zach Edey that you really just, I'm not sure when you'll see again between his size and his ability. Because I think, we could have probably kept playing if we didn't run into him, or obviously Yukon was kind of a wrecking crew that I don't think we would have got past. But I thought we were outside of those two were able to compete with anyone and probably make it as far until we ran into those two. So I was really happy with where we finished.
To make a deep run in the NCAA tournament, a lot of times you either have to have a roster like you guys had, and I think it was 21, the final 4-year with Jalen Suggs as a freshman that's just better than everybody, or gelled throughout the season, or you have to have the bracket break out in a way that gives you an opportunity. And I mentioned the Yukon. I thought they were the most dominant team throughout the year. You saw them up close in person by coaching against them. I had them one time in a broadcast. To me, that was the team that was like head and shoulders above everyone. When you sit back, or did you sit back and watch that national title game, did you watch it as a fan, or did you watch it as a coach? Like, we tried that didn't work. Purdue needs to do this. Yukon should do this. What was that like?
It was interesting because we had played both. I thought that they were the best 2 teams. I didn't think. I knew they were the best 2 teams we had played. And I was happy that they met in the final. 2 programs that I respect a ton, that I personally respect a ton, that I thought were the best teams. So I thought that was cool that the best 2 teams faced each other. But I also thought there was a lot of similarities. Very complicated offenses, really good X and O coaches, very, very unselfish teams that play the right way, that run a lot of good stuff. And then, 2 huge guys in the middle. I mean, obviously Zach Edey gets the attention as he should, 2-time National Player of the Year, but Clinton's a heck of a player. Yeah. And he's way bigger than people realize. So, going into that game, I thought Yukon was, probably the better team, and I thought that they at least had a guy that could stand in there with Edey a little bit more than other teams had. So I was really interested to see how the similarities played out, and see that game. And obviously Yukon was just, they were good when we played them, and I think they just kept getting better.
You guys, it's on the schedule to play Yukon next year in Madison Square Garden. I don't know if a date's been set. You would know better than me. It's so far out. They're going to have quite a bit of roster overhaul, I would imagine, because they're going to have NBA guys leave early. It looks, as we record this, the roster at GU staying pretty much intact. We would hope still. How do you foreshadow or look into the future about those prospective matchups against such good teams?
I mean, obviously, Yukon's back-to-back national champions. That hasn't been done in almost 20 years. I mean, where their program is at right now, they're going to be plenty good. I don't care if this whole roster comes back and they're going for a three-peat or it's a whole new group. What Coach Hurley's done, they're going to be real and playing at Madison Square Garden. They pack that place out. It'll be a road game. we know that that's going to be a massive challenge regardless of who they have in that uniform. But that is one unique thing, whether it's Yukon or whether it's going to be one of these home games, the projecting of rosters that you had when we played versus even 10 years ago, well, maybe that guy will go pro, maybe he won't, is over. I mean, we're scheduling games where teams don't have a roster. So who knows what they're going to look like. They might be awesome. They might not be very good.
But a lot of that then, sorry to interrupt, would go back to, programs that have been consistent for a number of years. Players gravitate towards those programs, or if a coach with a reputation moves to a new place, that reputation goes with him and they can build quickly. Am I right?
Yeah, for sure. And that's why UConn's going to be elite with Coach Hurley. They're going to be elite. They're going to play hard. They're going to be tough. They're going to be great on both ends of the ball. And he's going to recruit a great roster, whether that includes a ton of carryover from this year or new guys. People want to go play for the two-time defending champion. So that one, you might not know exactly who the names are going to be, but they're going to be really good and they're going to play the right way. Whereas, other places, it's just there's so much turnover right now.
So Gonzaga, you guys have avoided a lot of the turnover roster. You've picked and chosen, and you guys have done a nice job of adding the right pieces. And if guys leave, it's because they feel it's an opportunity that they need to take advantage of. But when you look at the roster this past season, it ended up blending really well. Guys ended up stepping up, that you could see it in the numbers, but also guys stepped up in ways that it didn't always show up in the final box score. When you look at growth individually throughout the year, people would probably gravitate towards Ben Gregg or maybe Nolan year over year. Was there one or two guys that maybe showed that growth that it didn't show itself in the box score, but you guys were like, man, they're on the right path. We can rely upon them moving forward?
I think, honestly, a cop-out answer, but it was everyone. Everyone in that top group that played showed that, and it's why we have so much confidence with the group moving forward. I think you mentioned him, but I think Nolan Hickman's year-to-year growth was huge. And statistically, it was incredible improvements. But more importantly to me, his growth as a leader was huge. He was a great mentor to the two freshmen, to Dusty and Braden. He was a voice that we heard a lot more, but especially that I know helped those freshmen adjust to college basketball and help bring them along. And that's so valuable to our program. So Nolan's growth, both statistically and leadership-wise, was massively important to this group. Anton continued to grow, continued to be a better leader, obviously felt some pressure, I think, as the senior and kind of the lone holdover from the previous 5 years of runs, the Final Four, the undefeated team, all those things that he had been a part of. And he did a great job battling to make his senior year finish strong. I think Graham and Ryan got more and more comfortable as the year went on. Their play improved. We started to see more leadership out of those two. And then you touched on Ben, obviously just kind of the Zag effort that he brings. And I don't think people know how badly he was hurt down the stretch those last WCC tournament NCAA. So what's that, like 5 games? He was battling and had some really good moments, but he was playing through a lot of pain to give this group everything he had. And then we touched on earlier the leadership that Nolan provided for Braden and Dusty. But those two were the bench as freshmen. And so obviously they had some really big moments throughout the year that they had to play in. And I even think to Dusty's game against McNeese, I thought he was so good in that first half to help us blow that game open, which for a true freshman in the NCAA tournament isn't easy. So those two really, I think, showed that they're going to be a huge part of our future and continued to grow. And, with how many bodies we played this year, we needed every guy. We couldn't have anybody really have an off day. So the overall growth is one of the things I'm most proud of.
So at Gonzaga, you have to balance personal aspirations because you recruit such high-level players, as well as team aspirations, and give them a map, a blueprint to how to maximize both. What is that conversation like when the season ends with players? Like, we had a great season. If the core of the group stays together, or if everybody comes back, as it's already been projected with the way too early top 25s. I mean, you guys are top 10 in pretty much everyone I've seen. What's that conversation to help guys understand where their value really may lie at the next level to test the NBA waters versus knowing, hey, these are the things at Gonzaga, if we keep focusing on these, your opportunities are going to grow through your evaluation process, from front offices, but also through your maturation process that just happens as a player if you work on things diligently.
Yeah, I think this group, with how the season finished, had a good feel for what could be possible. I also think they're mature enough to realize that we lost a really good player in Anton. I mean, I think you could ask everyone on this year's roster, and they would tell you what a special player Anton is and how valuable he was to this team. I know in the locker room after the last game, some guys shared some stuff just about how they feel about his place in Gonzaga history and how important he is to this program. So the loss is massive. But the group that's coming back was really excited and really wanted to attack it. And I think that it's a mature enough group that they understand we did have success. They had individual success. We had some team success. But we can't just be satisfied and think that's automatically going to repeat next year. They know that we have to make huge jumps, and I think they're excited about that and willing to work on that. And then you touched on it. It's the balance of, what do they need to add to their games to help Gonzaga and also to help them get to where they want to be professionally. I think at Gonzaga we have a history of obviously balancing those, and what helps them individually helps us. And I think that obviously is shown at Gonzaga and our team success, but then obviously with the amount of guys that have moved on, and I think that's part of why people come to Gonzaga is for the winning, but also they know that there's a path for them to play at the highest levels. Obviously the NBA, but we've also had a lot of guys go on to EuroLeague, those types of things. So I think they know that if they come in and they work and they kind of go along that path, that there's a really bright future for them. And like I said, just so far, I've been really, really impressed by this group's maturity of that balance of, hey, here's what I'm going to work on because next year it's going to help the team, but I know long run, that's going to give me a chance to get up on that wall that you're on, and whatever, there's 28 guys up there now or whatever there is, because that's obviously all their goal, and it should be.
Let's talk about Anton real quick. Obviously, he's been a huge part of the program for 5 years. Came in with unique expectations because he's a local kid. Battled some injuries early, but he became a tremendous player. His stats showed it his maybe last year and a half, but his impact wasn't always felt in the box score. What are you guys going to most miss about Anton, and what do you value most about having coached him for 5 years?
Everything. I think Coach talked about it. He's a problem solver. Like, his feel is just so good on both ends of the floor. I know I'm going to miss, and you touched on a little bit, his unselfishness. I mean, he came in, he was fantastic his freshman year. He had injuries from day one. He literally sprained his ankle in the first game in the Bahamas. That led to the shoulders. So you had a guy that was starting as a true freshman. We know how rare that is, to being out for the year. That next year started some, and then Andrew Nimhard, who we all know what Andrew is about now, came on, and Anton, for the betterment of the team, came off the bench, was a sixth man on a team that was, historically good, undefeated to the final game. Then Chet comes the next year. I mean, you're talking a top 2 pick in the draft. Ton was the sixth man behind him and Drew, and did whatever we needed that year to balance the strengths and the deficiencies of Chet and Drew, helped us be another number 1 seed. And then these last 2 years, just kind of slowly but surely stepped up his aggressiveness, continued to add to his game. I think last year his statistical value was a little bit underrated. And then this year, just you can go game by game. The UCLA game was one of the better games I've seen someone play. We obviously lost it, but he was the only guy that kept us in the game at Santa Clara. So kind of for a guy that had been a reluctant scorer to have 2 30-point games. But more than that, it's our offense could flow through him. He could break presses. We used him to break presses. We used him to guard 1 through 5. When we needed a basket, we could go to him. When we needed someone else to get set up, we could go to him. Just he was our main guy against a zone. Just his feel and his willingness to do whatever it takes to win. And then, I think the way he continued to develop his skill set, you just touched on it with the last question, helped us win a ton of games. I think he's the 3rd winningest player in program history, which if you do that, I think puts you in the top 10 in NCAA history. Yeah. But it's got him, he's going to have really, really good pro prospects. which I'm super excited for him as an individual because he's earned that and he deserves that.
Yeah, Adam Morrison and I talked about that earlier this week about, his growth, his evolution, and what he might need to do to he might not make it day one, but the way that he approaches it, if he approaches it the way that we all think he will, he's going to be a big time pro. Big time meaning make it at the NBA level, by focusing on the right skill sets for that league, because that league is completely different than the college game and how you have to play and how you have to understand the game.
No, it's totally different. I think it's going to take a lot of work. He's going to need some breaks, like you said, but his game to me fits the modern NBA. He's so versatile defensively. He can do a lot of different things on offense. His shooting has really progressed. It's going to have to continue to progress, but I talk about it to people all the time when they ask me, well, what about this guy? Why didn't that guy? Why did this guy, make the NBA? And I try to explain to people it's not the same game. What the NBA is looking for and what a successful college player, it's a totally different deal. And where the NBA is right now fits Anton Watson. Yeah. And that's really cool that he's hitting it at the right time from that standpoint and what the NBA wants. And I think he'll attack it and end up playing in that league.
So let's move, talk WCC, big picture. St. Mary's had a terrific year. San Francisco continues to improve already, although they've already got a couple guys that have entered the transfer portal. But there's two new additions, Oregon State, Washington State. They're both programs that come from a bigger conference. Washington State had a tremendous run, but they lose their coach and almost their whole roster. Not knowing exactly who's going to be a part of those programs right now. But I'm sure you know Wayne Tinkle well. I know you know David Riley, who was at Eastern Washington, well. What's the expectation of those two teams joining the league?
That they strengthen the league from day one. Just they don't fit the model of the rest of the league, and I think that's their advantage. They're massive state schools, huge student populations. They're coming from Power 5 leagues with Power 5 money, Power 5 facilities. They're going to strengthen the league. I mean, obviously, WSU was a quad 1 opponent this year. I think they'll return some guys from a really good NCAA tournament team. Coach Riley will do a great job down there. He's obviously been super successful at Eastern. And obviously that'll add some local rivalry to that with Spokane being a large WSU fan base as well. And Oregon State, Coach Tinkle can really coach. They do a lot of different things defensively. Obviously they knocked off Arizona this year. So I think, again, them being from the Pac-12 and what a good coach Tinkle is, I'm expecting both those teams to be right in the thick of it. Santa Clara's been absolutely great the last few years. They're going to have a lot less turnover, I think, than they had last year, and they still took fourth, beat us with all that turnover. They're going to have a lot of guys returning. St. Mary's is St. Mary's. Saxon's coming back. Yep. Those guards are a handful. We struggled with their guards. Coach Bennett's obviously awesome. And then, the biggest thing is USF's going to be really good. Yeah. I mean, Thomas and Williams are two of the better guards out there. Mogbo and Newberry are an elite front court, so they're set. I thought they were a team they probably should have won an NIT game this year, and for them to return their core, I'm expecting the league to be, especially now that you add WSU and Oregon State, that top portion of the league to be really strong next year.
Coaching turnover has been wild so far. Obviously by being in the college basketball industry, you keep an eye on it, but Calipari leaving for Arkansas was unique. But there was a funny domino effect of one coach leaves, gets fired from SMU, Enfield goes to there, then Musselman wants to go to USC. Who would have thought Calipari would take Arkansas in these crazy times?
Yeah, I think historically that would be really unique, right? Yeah. You don't leave Kentucky. I think it shows you where the college game is right now, and Arkansas is going to be real now. He's going to have that thing rolling. Obviously, we were fortunate enough to play his teams when he was at Memphis, the great teams. We've had this series with Kentucky. Everybody in college basketball knows what kind of guys he brings in. Yeah. Arkansas is about to have a lot of pros and a lot of really good teams. And obviously, we have the Kentucky series. It's Kentucky. That's a blue blood. We talked a little bit about Yukon earlier. Like, it's still going to be Kentucky. So that's going to be interesting to take on kind of a new look Kentucky team next year.
Yeah. With us sitting here recording, there's about 1,500 names in the transfer portal before it closes in 2.5 weeks or so. I would expect it to get over 2,000. I mean, that's more than last year. You can't expect a coaching staff like you guys to know exactly who's in the portal, who you would have interest in, how you would reach out, strengths, weaknesses, how they would fit, all that. But obviously, you have to have a process. What's the process looking like for Gonzaga and sifting through the portal? Because you might see 50 names linked to a school and then you're scratching your head like, that's impossible. There's 3 openings. But every staff approaches it differently. How do you guys approach it?
Each year's different based on what you need and how many you need, right? And we've been fortunate so far to avoid, I think I heard on the maybe it was a Final Four broadcast that like Alabama had like 9 new guys.
Yeah.
So you have these teams that are having to get 8, 9. What was Utah State, like 12 or 13?
They had 0 returning points.
So whatever, 13 guys out of it last year, which is unbelievable. I mean, the way you have to approach that versus this year where we don't need much, especially at this point, is a little bit different. But you touched on it. I mean, you got a massive amount of names you got to sift through by need, and that's where we can be really specific this year. But I think that's the biggest thing is by need, what position do you need? What age do you need? Do you need a grad guy? Do you need a freshman? And you just kind of go through and sort it by that. And then it's all hands on deck, trying to watch film, trying to look at stats. If you think you get a lead, do you know somebody maybe in their league that you could talk to about the guy? And then, it's just a lot of calls, a lot of reaching out to people to gauge interest. But it's a busy time of year and it's a unique time of year. And I think why we're going to see so many more, I agree with you. I think this will set the record is the 2-time transfer being gone. I think in the past, when you and I were around, you did it. You had to sit when you transferred. Yeah. And I'm sure when you were making that decision, it at least made you think.
Yeah.
Then that went away. You got the 1 free transfer. So everybody did that. There was no, I don't want to call it a penalty, but there was no repercussion. So everybody transferred, played once. Well, guys that wanted to transfer a second time at least had a pause.
Yeah.
And now that's gone. 2, 3, 4, doesn't matter. And so you're just going to have so many more now because you're going to have these 2- and 3-time transfers that aren't concerned about having to sit a year. They know they're going to get a play next year. So I agree in the next couple of weeks, I think that number is going to blow past 2,000 and end up a record.
Well, good luck to you and the rest of the staff about getting some rest and figuring out exactly how to navigate it, because that is a chore in and of its own. Off-season workouts, summer practices are always important, but they're unique in the fact that you can test different things, try different things without it being too close to the season where it really impacts a lot. This year will be a little different, though, because Coach Few's got Team USA responsibilities with the Olympics. I guess, what's that excitement level like to having him being a part of the highest basketball level in the world? And then are you going to try to get tickets and get back there yourself somehow?
I wish. I think the family's a little young for that, but boy, going to Paris for the Olympics sounds pretty nice. The excitement level is amazing. And obviously he's earned it with his Hall of Fame career, but to be the only college coach associated within a U.S. Olympic team is really special and a really unique opportunity. And I think you and I, being basketball people, know how hard the World Championships are, know how much other countries outside of the U.S. value that, and that the U.S. does not at the same level. So what they did last year was a really big deal. But the Olympics is even bigger, especially with the United States, especially now with the roster they're going to take this year. He's going to get to coach the best players in the game today, future Hall of Famers. Some guys you could argue might be up there with the greatest players of all time. So just an incredible opportunity and really, really cool for him and cool for our program. So it's going to be a fun summer.
So I would imagine practices and workouts will be scheduled around those games, so you and staff and hopefully players can sit back and watch that.
Yeah, and I think we'll do some things. I think we'll try and get a lot of time with the guys while coach is here too, because obviously the Olympics aren't until quite a bit later in the summer. And actually in August we give the guys a break anyways because there's no summer school. So I think by the time the games get here, the guys will definitely be gone. But I think we'll do a good job trying to work around coach's schedule so that he's here, because obviously having him here in the summer is really, really important. And I think it's a little bit of a benefit that we are going to have a more veteran team. Whereas last year you were bringing in Dusty was a freshman, Braden had never played in the game, Ryan, Graham, and Steele were all new. I mean, there was really not a lot of continuity last summer, and so we didn't get to work maybe on as many things like you said. We had to be pretty streamlined because everybody was new. This year, I think the roster continuity helps with that.
Well, this table's set to have another great season. It just kind of seems like it's plug and play with Gonzaga basketball. And I know it sounds, funny to say that, but again, 9 straight Sweet 16s, another 25-win season. You finish in the top 10 of pretty much every poll. Shows just how good this program has become, how good it continues to be, the expectations that are out there. It's pretty impressive, as a former player and someone who, follows the program closely. It's impressive still to this day. And I know you are very proud to be a part of it, and you guys do everything you can to live up to those expectations, to meet and exceed them. And it's been great to have your insight throughout this season.
No, I appreciate you guys having me, and it's been fun to do this show, and obviously to be involved and to get to do it with you is awesome. Someone I respect so much and was a great teammate and a huge part of the program's history here. So it's a great end to another year, and I'm glad it feels like plug and play. It doesn't feel like that on my end,
Yeah.
but the consistency has been remarkable. It's one of the things we're most proud of, and obviously we're just going to keep fighting every single day to get the best product we can out on the floor and to continue that success and chase championships.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure we'll have you in at some point over the summer just to continue to talk hoops. Look forward to continuing this next year. But for Gonzaga Nation and the Coaches Show, Brian Michaelson has been a tremendous guest throughout the season. So thanks again to Brian. Thank you to the viewers. Until next time, thanks for listening.